Welcome to the Project Vanguard podcast, home of the community of veterans in energy, where we explore the journeys of veterans leading in the energy space. We're building American energy dominance through an all-of-the-above approach, where energy security is national security, and increasing the veteran workforce in energy is the best way to advance our industry. I'm your host, Kevin Doffing. Today's guest is Kyle Charpy, former U.S. Navy nuclear submariner who now manages solar and battery storage projects across the state of Texas. After growing up in post-industrial Pittsburgh and enlisting to find greater opportunities, Kyle found himself at the controls of nuclear reactors beneath the ocean surface. But when he left the Navy, he faced a tough reality. High-level technical experience doesn't always translate directly into industry, and the energy job market wasn't as open as the headlines made it seem. What followed was a series of tough decisions and reinventions. From supervising high-voltage contractors and becoming the go-to guy for utility-scale solar operations, Kyle carved out a civilian career defined not by flashy titles, but by grit, precision, and a deep sense of responsibility to the community and to his country. In this episode, we talk about why he left nuclear, how he broke into clean energy without a college degree, and why he believes veterans are critical to rural America's energy transition. You'll hear about agrivoltaics with sheep, the limits of job training and renewables, and why local engagement, not corporate campaigns, builds real trust. Kyle's story is both a warning and a blueprint for how we grow a workforce that can actually meet this moment. If you've ever wondered what it looks like to truly serve beyond the uniform, or how energy connects directly to national security and community dignity, this one's for you. Let's get into it. Kyle, it's great to have you here for the Project Vanguard podcast. Let's jump right in. How did you even decide to join the military? What was that like for you?
I mean, I think it's a pretty common story, right? It was lack of opportunity. Growing up in Pittsburgh in the 80s and the 90s, the steel had left. They weren't quite where they are now with the pivot towards tech. There wasn't opportunity, right? I got out of high school, tried doing some different jobs. I felt blocked out of everything because I didn't have a bachelor's degree and I couldn't get into a union. So what do? My dad was a cop. So I thought, okay, well, I gotta go be a cop, but how do you save up for police academy, blah, blah, blah. Went to the recruiting office to be a military police, right? Get the training for free.
Right.
And I went to the Air Force actually originally, and the Air Force was not hiring that day.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was walking out and walked past the Marine recruiter who was like, hey, you looking for the Air Force? And yeah, he made some joke about the Air Force not being open that day. I was like, yeah, but I'm not really looking to go infantry, right? I'm looking for, to be some kind of MP. I don't think the Marines have that. And he's like, yeah, not really, but the Navy has it. They're called Masters at Arms. I was like, oh, so he walked me over to the Navy station and introduced me, and that got the ball rolling. And then, just a few months later, I was off to boot camp.
And how did your parents take that? I mean, your dad's a cop, so probably not upset, but did he just really want you to be a cop, or what was that like?
He wanted me to be happy. He would have been happy with me as a cop. He also, I think, wanted maybe more, just because being a cop can be hard on you after so long, right? The situations you get into and things like that. And in the course of my intake to the military, I took the ASVAB test, scored really high on that. And so the recruiter was like, well, you want to be a nuke? I'm like, well, what's a nuke, right? And long story short, for the listeners who aren't military, a nuke is the term for the people in the Navy who operate the nuclear reactors on submarines and carriers. Every aircraft carrier and every submarine in the United States Navy is powered by one or two nuclear reactors. And the people who staff those aren't nuclear engineers, actually. We're a bunch of kids who scored well in the ASVAB test and know how to suck it up for 4 years, right? So that's what powers our fleet, right?
So did you know when you were getting in, you were going to end up on a sub, or?
I opted to volunteer right away. The recruiter asked me, he's like, hey, you can be carrier, submarine as a nuke. And I'm driven, and I always kind of want to do the most high-end thing I can do. I was like, well, okay, yeah, of course, let's go submarines, right?
Right. So, I mean, nuclear's kind of having a heyday right now. Department of Energy likes it. Everybody likes it. There's a lot of investment, movement. Bill Gates likes it for a long time. What was it like working inside of this little tin can with a nuclear reactor on board?
It's technically demanding, right? You have to know all the pieces, parts of it, right? So on a submarine, everybody earns their fish, right? They're the little dolphin patch that everybody earns that goes right here. It's a huge deal. And it says, hey, I have a base level understanding of all of the basic life support systems of the submarine. Well, then in the engineering department, right, the nukes are really 4 different distinct groups of people, and they each have a specialty, but realistically, they can all kind of, jury rig something up for the other groups if they needed to in an emergency, right? And there's some cross qualification, right? Like a mechanic can qualify an electrical thing, electrician can qualify a mechanical thing. And it's really that defense in depth that enables you to safely operate a nuclear reactor. It takes everybody, and you have to be so skilled. We drill endlessly. I mean, it's your Saturdays and Sundays on a surface ship are you're cleaning a little bit in the morning and then you're going to the gym and maybe you're burning a flick. But on a submarine, your Saturdays and Sundays a lot of times are drilling and killing, as we call it.
Okay, I got it. So whenever I think of nuclear, I just think of like the waste that comes off. I've never worked in nuclear. Like, what was that like on the ship? Are y'all like just this tin can's just leaking, radioactive waste in its trail? You just dump it when you get back. I'm completely off base. Like,
Yeah, you're completely off
educate
base.
me on this, Kyle.
It's a huge misconception with the nuclear industry, right? When you say nuclear power, all you think is 50-gallon drums with glowing green goop oozing out of them, right?
I mean, I'm thinking Captain Planet. There was a villain that was
Yeah,
this guy,
that's
right? Like,
absolutely right. And yes, the first few gens of nuclear power submarines, workers had some level of real exposure. It was always below the federal limits, but they had some real exposure, right? On today's submarines, nobody really gets any real level of exposure at all, ever. And as for waste, the way the systems are designed, you don't really generate waste in the moment. I mean, you get a little bit of waste, right? Because you sample the primary water and like a drop comes out and you pick it up with a chem wipe and then you have to dispose of it specifically. The amount of waste like on that is minimal, right? It decays away.
okay.
That's the thing with nuclear power is everything that's radioactive ultimately decays away because that's what radioactivity is, right? And so really the only real generation of nuclear waste from a submarine or a carrier is when it gets refueled or if you're not refueling at the end of life. And that's where
They just decommission them, right? Like they just.
they cut out the core
Mhm.
and for like a submarine, I don't quite know how a carrier does it, but on a submarine, they take the reactor compartment, which is its own special watertight compartment. They literally cut it out and they send it to some, I don't want to say landfill because it's way more complicated than that. There's a big pit somewhere in rural Idaho. It's a few football fields in length and it goes pretty deep. And really what they're doing is they're just sitting these nuclear waste pieces in there. It's lead lined, it's concrete lined. I think there's a plan to have it double stacked. And that has like the majority of spent nuclear fuel in this country in like the past 60 years.
Oh, wow.
And it's not even close to being full, right?
Yeah.
There's not just spent nuclear fuel sitting in somebody's backyard, right? Yes, there were mistakes made in the industry at large, in the civilian side and some things that had to get cleaned up. But from the Navy side, at least, I mean, our stuff is very, very above board.
Okay, so you're doing all this stuff. You come from the mean streets of Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
You don't end up being a cop. You go into the nuclear fleet, and then you somehow end up managing solar projects. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how do you get out of the Navy and end up where you are today?
Well, so like you were saying, the nuclear power is really popular right now. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody loves it, right? None of that momentum is generating into real growth in the field and real job growth, right? The nuclear field continues to shrink. They've only brought one new reactor online in the past 45 years. That's Vogtle 3 in South Carolina. It took them 10 years. The cost was like 5 times or something atrocious over what it was supposed to be. And so I thought to myself, right, well, what opportunity to advance is there, right? Like, yeah, I'll come in as a reactor operator. You get paid well. You get paid, you get paid really well, actually. But it's shift work forever, right? It's shift work forever. And you realistically, because there's no new plants really being built, you don't get a promotion until somebody retires. And that's not, getting out of the Navy at a little over 30, that's not really the trajectory I wanted, right? I wanted something growing, something moving, right? I didn't even look for renewable jobs, right? I was just looking for something that wasn't shift work, really. And so, and I didn't want to do manufacturing, right? Because I don't just want to make stuff for people to consume, right? I want
I
to,
mean, what kind of plants were you going to look at if you did?
I mean, in Illinois, you got a bunch, right? You got Braidwood, Dresden, Quad City,
Did you tell me at one point it was like, do I go work in a mayonnaise plant or
Yeah, cool. Cause so we wanted to go back to Chicago, 'cause that's where my wife is from, and there's a Hellman's plant there. And the thought of being like a maintenance manager for mayonnaise was not on my dream sheet, so to speak. So so I thought to myself, what did I like doing in the Navy? What was one of my favorite jobs in the Navy, right? One of my favorite roles I had in the Navy was when I was the electrical operator. It's a watch station on the submarine. It's for electricians. You sit in front of the electric plant for the entire submarine. You have a panel in front of you with a bunch of stuff on it, like a horizontal panel. Then you have a vertical panel, and then you have like another like riser panel up here, full of just meters, knobs, switches, controls, things like that, right?
yeah.
And I loved standing electrical operator. It's when things are going good, it's a really chill, easy watch station. And when things are going bad, you're like the center of the storm because you're also the phone talker. On a submarine, all of the phones are sound powered, and the electrical operator is the phone talker. So you're kind of the focal point between the box you're in, the engineering space, and the rest of the boat. And so it's a really, really fast paced, interactive,
Mm.
challenging role, and I love doing that. And so I literally I went to Indeed, didn't really have a LinkedIn at the time because we're terrible when we're in the military of understanding LinkedIn and how to use it, right?
Did
And
you have a TAPS program at all when you were getting out?
I did, and it was like, why am I
Was it like mine? It's like a 45-minute video, and then I was like, all right, so I need to go drop off some canteens that apparently I checked out a while ago.
that was the nice thing about the Navy was we didn't really check out gear to turn in, so we just avoid that whole thing.
Oh, God. Hand receipts. It was the bane of my existence.
So went to Indeed, typed in electrical operator, and I started finding these jobs for what they call op centers, right? And everybody calls it a little differently in the field, right? Some call it a systems operation center, some call it a remote operation center, some call it a like systems control center. Everybody has their term, but it's shift work, but whatever. I was open to it at this point. It seemed like it may be something. Then you sit in a box and you handle phone calls from these different operating assets, and especially for the wind and solar field because they build the wind and solar farms in the middle of nowhere. You're not going to build a control room right there, right? It's ridiculous. Nobody would do that.
Right.
So you instead centralize your control centers. And so this kind of a role, you would sit there and you would, monitor the plants remotely, answer phone calls, help with switching, coordinate with your reliability entities or scheduling entities, all that stuff, right? So I applied for that Acciona, got an interview.
And what is Acciona, if everybody doesn't know?
So Acciona Energia is a renewable energy provider worldwide, over a dozen countries, a mixture of concentrated solar power, PV solar power, wind, hydro. In Spain, they have biomass and batteries.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Got it.
their control centers in Chicago, hence why I found them. And in my interview, it quickly became obvious that they were looking to hire in the next 2 weeks, and I still had like 3 months left. And the recruiter at the time said, "Hey, give me a call when you're a little closer, and we'll see what we have." And so I did. Right, I waited. I called him back. I felt like it was a good lead. We'd already established rapport, so I called him back in like a month and a half. And they're looking for a high voltage technician. Can I tell them? Well, I'm brutally honest up front. I have no high voltage experience. And they said,
What could possibly go wrong?
"Oh, yeah, right." And they say, "Okay, well, let's keep talking." Because I found at this point the job had been open for like 18 months, right? They needed somebody in this role. We started talking, got a second interview with the hiring manager, and he realized through the course of the interview, he realized I checked every single box except the high voltage requirement.
Kind of a big box.
And he said, "Well, okay, we'll take a shot here." Because, I mean, to an extent, electricity is electricity, right? You're operating a lot closer to your margins in high voltage, but it's still electricity. Otherwise, had the experience, so they brought me on.
But it's also the kind of electricity that'll kill you dead twice.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're going by what like OSHA and the NFPA says, like anything over 50 is really deadly. It's just, I mean, not to be morbid, but it's really, there's been open or closed casket at that point.
Nice. Nice. I'm sure your wife loved to hear that.
Yeah.
Maybe those are the things we don't go home and share at dinner. So, okay, so you're getting in there. So you go out into the field as a high voltage tech, or they train you? Like, was that normal? Did they have a training plan or a training school? Or they were just like, listen, we like you enough. You're a vet. We're going to take a shot. We're going to send you to school. Or were you like working underneath the journeyman and
Mm.
apprenticing? How did that play out for
It
you?
was partly a personality hire. The hiring manager was from southeastern Ohio, And so he was also a Steelers fan.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of, that kind of goes,
Oh,
right?
God.
But no, it was, I think I showcased enough knowledge and an ability to learn. And so there was no real training program, right? And that's one of the challenges that the solar field has right now, and the wind field, the whole industry has, right, for renewables, is a good dedicated training program, right? And it's not like being an electrician, right? We're not running conduit, we're not installing breakers, we're not doing stuff like that. It's honestly more akin to like an HVAC technician, right?
Yeah.
We're taking measurements, we're replacing broken components, things like that. And as the high voltage technician, Acciona is big, but they're still not big enough to have like a dedicated in-house substation maintenance team, right? You have to be huge to have that, right? Like Duke has
Yeah.
it, and they'll probably
Yeah,
have it.
your utility.
Yeah, they have it, but most IPPs don't, right? And an IPP is an independent power producer for those who don't know. We're not utilities. We build a plant where we think we can sell power on the market, and then we maintain it ourselves, right? So really, I ended up being a contractor supervisor, right? When we do a maintenance outage, I'd fly to the site and I would just observe the maintenance provider, right? Are they really doing the testing? Are they doing the testing right? Are they being safe? Did they do the right whatever, that kind of stuff. If I did that for about 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
and Acciona had acquired a very large solar development portfolio, and I didn't really care for the high voltage world, to be brutally honest, right? It was kind of boring, not a lot going on. Supervising contractors is not, I think, anybody's idea of a good time, right? And um, so I wanted to get into the solar side of things. And so what I did was I said, well, if I can show I had value, they'll maybe they'll want to bring me in. And so I knew just from hearing the meetings and being around other people, there were a lot of questions about solar. It was Acciona's first foray into solar in North America. We only had a couple other plants elsewhere, and they were pretty niche things, just super high irradiance in like deserts and stuff like that. So I went and I made a spreadsheet that listed major components, the different pieces, parts of the components, why we might care about that component, why we might care about the different forms the component might come into. I even was like researching ASTM standards on like steel production, because the piles you drive are really important. If the quality of the
Yeah.
piles you drive sucks, and it's problems, you won't know it right away. But in 10 years, all of a sudden your plant's falling apart. Why? Well, you didn't do a good job of selecting your pile supplier, right? And so I did that, and that kind of brought me to the attention of some people higher up than me, and they started engaging me more on solar stuff. And I said, hey, whatever you want, like, I'll do it, right? So just really threw myself into it, and then they ended up making me the solar maintenance planner.
So at any point in this, are you going back to school using your GI Bill at all? Or?
That's been a journey of itself using the GI Bill. It was a huge question when I got out, right? Do I want to work full time? Do I want a student full time? I thought with my age and my desire to not live with my in-laws for too long that I was going to get a job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
But at this point, I am starting to explore my GI Bill. I've taken a class here and there. I took some engineering classes, found out that I do not like math. I don't enjoy doing math,
Yeah.
And so I shifted gears. I moved through some other things. I thought, well, maybe if I don't want to do this, maybe I could be an accountant, right? It's the least sexy job in the world, but you know who needs accountants? Everybody.
But you know what accountants do, right? They play with numbers all day.
That's different. It's money. Money's fun. Money's fun. Money buys things.
Okay, so school math, not okay. Money math is okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it turns out I'm really good with Excel and spreadsheets and building databases.
I was about to say, I've seen you do Excel
Mhm.
stuff. Like, I saw you working that GIS map.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, so you go through this, you've been a tech, you're now on the solar side.
Mhm.
Now you're managing all these different solar farms and battery farms. How did you get up to that point?
So I was a solar planner for a little bit, for about 2 years, and the whole time, that's where I really shifted into the business side of things. I realized that I was pretty weak on how businesses work, right? The technical broke, make, fix thing just from the Navy. I had a ton of experience with that, and I really knew what I was doing there. But how do businesses operate, right? How does accounting work? How do business decisions get made? What's strategy? Things like that, right? And so I said, okay, well, maybe I'll try business admin degree. So I went to Indiana State University because I was living in Indiana at the time,
Mm-hmm.
got into the business admin program and started doing classes. And I found out that by and large, I like those classes. I like business intelligence. I like business operations. I like those things. And so I was doing that. I got really good at a bunch of the different things. I helped shepherd 2 solar farms in the Houston area, Fort Bend Solar and Red-tailed Hawk Solar. I helped shepherd them across the finish line, right? Did quality visits, worked with the construction team on documentation handover, the initial hirings, the even unglorious but much needed setting up utilities, right? Who's going to pick up our trash? How do we get our mail delivered? Who's going to power the electricity for the building? Things like that. And because I'd done so much there, Acciona looked at me and said, "Hey, do you want to go down there and be the manager?" And so I, talked to my wife. I said, "Hey, how do you feel about Houston?" And she said, "Okay, we can live in the South. Why not?" And here we are.
Yeah, now you've got a solar project that's in the district for, the state senator that's trying to kill the industry.
That bill passed the Senate yesterday, I saw.
I saw that. One of the reasons we're sharing these stories is so that people understand how many veterans work in this industry. It's 10% of the clean energy industry is military veteran.
Right.
We have really strong social mobility capability, right? You didn't have a college degree. You came in from Pittsburgh.
Mhm.
You moved up, and now you're running multiple projects where I run into someone in economic development outside of Dallas, and they're like, "Oh, we have this big battery thing by us." I'm like, "Oh, that's great. What company is it with?" "Oh, it's with Acciona." They said it a different way, and I was like, I don't know if that's how you say it."
Yeah.
"Wait, you don't know Kyle, do you?" And she's like, "Oh my god, I was just talking to him last week."
That's funny.
You know?
That was
I
that
mean
that really blew me away when you said that. I was like, really? I'm like, what are the odds? Right?
it's a small place, but like, just the impact that these projects are making in those communities. Just talk about, like, what has that engagement been like up in Dallas around a lot of this stuff?
One of the key things, and I wish the people who voted yes on the bill yesterday understood this more. These projects are in rural America. They are the parts of the country that have been left behind. They don't just think they've been left behind by any metric. They've been left behind, right?
Yeah.
And so when you have a company like Acciona come in and build a solar farm and put 800 jobs there for a year and a half, and then after that, yes, the number's a lot smaller after the fact, right? There's only 8 or 12 people at a site, but
Yeah, but the money's still
the
flowing
money's
in.
still
All
flowing
the
in.
first
You're
responders,
using
the
local
schools that are
workers,
getting
right?
this.
The people who clean my building, the people who pick up my trash, we buy lunches from. All of that is cash flowing into these, for lack of a better word, distressed communities. And so actually the engagement with these local community leaders, be it in Quinlan, Texas, or Wharton or El Campo or wherever, they're all about it. They love us. They know that this is their chance to engage with a much larger company and just work to develop their communities more, right? Maybe it's through charitable giving. Maybe it's through, hey, I know this landowner, they got 1,000 acres. They're 70 years old. Their kids don't want to work it. Can they do solar there? Right.
Right.
And that's how a solar farm gets developed. That's the main way.
It's like estate planning.
Yeah, it is.
Like, how do we keep this in our family without having to sell it to a major corporation?
Exactly. Absolutely. Because it's leased.
So where do you see this disconnect? There's all this talk about, in some of these communities or just from these elected officials that don't like renewables, but it's doing so much in those communities. So where's the disconnect?
I think it's because they're not present in their communities. It's a shot across the bow, but they're not present in their communities.
Yeah. I had one state senator tell me, they're like, "Listen, I'll be honest with you, we don't care about renewables. Like, we're not pro, we're not anti, we just don't have a stance. But y'all are not in those communities talking to people. We know you're doing good stuff, but like, we only know that because, we see some of these things, but you don't need to talk to me. You need to go talk to them."
Yeah.
So, like, what do you think the industry needs to be doing at that localized level to tell the truth and showcase what's actually happening?
You got to engage with the local governments, right? And you got to pick the right ones. Every county is a little different for who the power players are, right? And it depends on the county even. We have a solar farm in Fort Bend County. Fort Bend County is well off, right?
Yeah.
There's not a lot of impact we can have in Fort Bend County because Fort Bend County is a well-off county. I don't think there's anything going wrong in Fort Bend County, and it's where it needs to be. But then if you go to Wharton County, they're economically distressed, right? It's a great county. I love it. I love being in Wharton County. The people are awesome. They were, for lack of a better term, abandoned by oil interests when the oil dried up, right? Oil dried up, they left, they picked up, they left. They didn't even take their stuff with them, right? There's pipelines in the ground still, They just not going to make money anymore. they're gone.
Right.
And so what do you do? What do you do with all these people, right? These people who they lived on the land for generations, right? Well, now wind and solar are here for that. So one of the ways to engage, get involved with the Chamber of Commerce. That's a key thing, right? Talk to their economic development committee, right? Talk to the local junior college, right? I volunteered with them in the past where I do resume reviews, mock interviews, things like that, right?
Yeah.
And show them you're an active member in the community, that you believe in their communities, because we should believe in their communities, right? And then, when we hear these things being talked about where, oh, solar's terrible, wind's terrible, blah, 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 challenge those people, right? Say, hey, when was the last time you went to Wharton County? Right? When was the last time you checked in with the Chamber of Commerce in one of your counties? When was the last time you talked to your county judges, right? Because they might have a different story to tell. And I don't think they're engaging with them.
Yeah. Well, I love how you're offering these tours. So, I mean, can you talk about that where you've had like students and other groups come out to just tour the solar
Yeah,
farm?
yeah. So Wharton County is really cool in that they have a thing for their school districts where the students have to tour local businesses so they can see, hey, there is opportunity here. You don't have to go to Los Angeles, New York, Miami to find a job, right? You can say here in Wharton County and have a good paying job and build your family. And that's what we do is every couple months I bring a school bus through, right? And show them the solar farm, and they have so many questions, right? They always have so many. It's awesome. And you see the spark of curiosity in them. And even if just one or two of them end up in the solar industry, that's a win by me,
Yeah.
right? They know what's going on here now. So
I mean, look at you and me. I had no idea that this industry existed until, it was a rapid fire weekend of interviews through a headhunter. And they're like, this is when. And I'm like, I mean, I assume that that's where this is all going, that and jetpacks, but like, I don't know anything else. And then once I started looking into it, I'm like, this is really cool. Like, this is awesome.
yeah.
I had no idea that this even existed. I mean, you found it through Indeed,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, just, the interweb marketplace, and it could have
Mm-hmm.
been anything.
Yeah.
So, like, what's the common question when you have these kids come out? Are they asking stuff like, hey, I hear that this causes tornadoes? They asking about like birds getting fried? Or are they just like, can I touch it? Like, what kind of comes up?
Yeah, actually, it's just curiosity. They don't. I've never had any of them ask like the birds or the tornadoes or any of that. It's how does it work? There's always can I touch it, which is a no because it's an industrial asset, right? I have a sample in the office that I can have them touch, but they don't get to go out in the field.
Yeah, no, I get it.
But they're interested in like how does it get made really, and how does it get to their house, right? And then because I have sheep on my sites with dogs, then usually those dominate their end of the conversation, right? Oh, how many sheep? How many dogs? Can I pet them?
Yeah, talk about that. I forgot about that you got all the agrivoltaics. Like, talk about what agrivoltaics is and then talk about how you're
Yeah,
doing it.
yeah. So agrivoltaics is agriculture and I guess volts. And it's the harmonious co-locating of agricultural work and producing electricity. And it can take a lot of forms. Could grow crops or you could have animals on it. Experience in industry, sheep are the best.
Goats like to eat things and jump on things. Not great for
Yeah.
solar or
Yeah,
cabling.
goats will climb on your panels and they will just destroy your panels. A 1,000-pound cow will try to scratch itself on a panel and it will crumple the panel. Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's not even close. But the sheep are docile. So sheep don't have top teeth, actually. They just have bottom teeth. Like, even if they wanted to chew the cables, they probably wouldn't be very successful with it.
So for somebody who's married to an Eastern Orthodox faithful and is used to having lamb on Easter, you're now surrounded by, your go-to.
Oh, yeah, yeah. No, one of my questions is, hey, can I get a line item for pulling a sheep out, right? See, I was let's
It's
grab and
lambic
go.
season. Come on, let's
Yeah.
do this. So do you have like a shepherd on staff, or is it a service, or this is dedicated to each farm? Do you rotate them?
So transporting the sheep any distance just becomes ludicrously expensive right away. So the sheep are kept at each farm and they're not rotated between the farms. We do have a shepherd, not my employee. It's a service provider. It's the sheep service provider has the shepherd. She's on my sites Monday through Friday and she just alternates her time between the two sites.
So is she got it like pinned in on different sections of the thing, or is she just moving them through?
We're working on creating some penning. We just initially, just to get the sheep on the site and to get the vegetation under control, we just, no penning. Now we're working on strategies to pen them long term, just trying to figure out how we want to break it up, things like that. There's a lot that actually, my one caution to the listeners is that be wary of bringing sheep, right? You don't just bring sheep on. I've had everybody and their brother show up and say, oh, hey, I could put some sheep on here. It's not that simple, right? You have to bring the right amount of sheep. You have to be prepared to care for them. They have to be the right type of sheep for the environment. There's so much, there are several companies out there that will provide sheep professionally and scientifically to get you the results you want. And people should be engaging with them.
Well, it's all land management. You're on a site that had like a 70-year-old that their kids are now lawyers because, they did well earlier on and don't want to manage it. That's probably better
Mm-hmm.
than like saddling the landowner with the obligation to do that.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's just a service. It's just a fee, and
It
it's
is.
better land use management.
And something else we can think of it is people get mad, oh, we're taking this farmland out of production, right? That's a common refrain, right? One, if the land was really that productive, they wouldn't have put solar on it, right?
Right. And I mean, like the people I always hear saying that are the tenant farmers that want to do something on the land, or it's people just in town that are like, hey, we don't want X. But it's not the farmers who are getting the checks. They are like, no, this is keeping it in my family.
Yeah,
This is saving it. This is a drought resistant thing.
it is.
I don't worry about tariffs on soybeans
Mm-hmm.
and what that's going to look like today, tomorrow, or in 6 hours. I know what I'm going to get paid for the next 25 years on this lease.
Yes. And when the lease is up, it could go back to farming, right? And so now think with sheep on the land, that's 25 or 30 years of sheep being born, living, dying, eating the grass, churning the ground with their hooves, right? All of that going on. This is going to be the
Yeah,
most
for
productive
restorative.
land in the county.
We were at that hearing on that bill that passed SB 819. And they were like, "Well, what happens when it's over?" And I was just waiting for there was some developers up there and they didn't say, and I'm like, "Oh my God, y'all pay for bonds to take it back to greenfield." Like if that 25-year time, the sheep are out there improving the nutrients in the ground, it hasn't been tilled, it hasn't been anything, it would just be great as if they just showed up on it. I'm like, there's a bond to take that out.
Mm-hmm.
But then we have all these P&A wells from the 50s to yesterday that are just not getting done. We have zombie wells. We have, wells that have passed through 8 different entities, and everybody's like, not my problem. And we definitely don't have the budget at the state level. Like taxpayers are going to pay for that.
Mm-hmm.
And meanwhile, the development company of the renewables are actively putting money up front so that there's money. If the project doesn't keep going, why would we take a power plant out of production considering the growth? It's there. The money's already allocated for it.
Absolutely.
Like it's committed.
Yeah.
Oh, it drives me crazy.
Yep.
So, as we're going through this, like you've been in the nuclear side of the house, you've been on voltage, you've now been on solar, and you've been on battery projects. Where do you see renewables fitting into this mix, and how does that factor into your experience from the military?
Mm. I mean, so it doesn't matter what side of the argument you're on. We can't just flick a switch and have everything with or tomorrow, right? It just doesn't work that way, right? We do have to have natural gas powered plants for some near future scenario, right?
We need it all.
It's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It's a fact that if we want to enjoy this lifestyle that we have in this country, we have to have them, right? That being said, solar farms, solar power plants, whatever you want to call them, are built so much faster, so much more cheaply than a power plant, right? Part of the problem is for a natural gas power plant, right? The combined cycle is actually a pretty complicated thing, right? There's a lot of heavy engineering that goes into that, right?
Oh yeah, see all the unscheduled maintenance that has to keep happening, and
Exactly.
mild weather where we almost, if we're not for batteries,
Yeah.
we could potentially have rolling blackouts
Yeah.
because they keep having issues.
And the supply chain, right? You're probably seeing, right? These developers keep pulling out of the Texas Electricity Fund.
Yeah.
It's because, especially now with the tariffs, where are we going to get the turbines and all of the various control components that power these, right? This is not even from China necessarily. Even if we get them from Germany now, is there going to be tariffs? Is there not, right? What's a tariff going to do? What's 15% going to do to your margin? Is that tariff has now rendered your development financially unfeasible, and so now you abandon it, right? Whereas a solar farm, I mean, you still have to do engineering, right? There's still design work. It's not at the same level. It's a matter of scale. And then it becomes a logistics game of digging the trenches, driving the piles, laying the cables, installing the inverters, connecting all the cables, commissioning. I mean, if you take all of the permitting and stuff out of the process, 12 to 18 months for a solar farm, right? And the cost of electricity is so much cheaper. It just is compared to natural gas. No matter what anybody says, yes, solar farms get whatever word you want to use. there is some kind of subsidy given to solar farms.
Well,
But so does natural gas
I
and
mean,
coal. They all get it. Everybody gets it,
yeah,
you know?
it's just called law
Yeah.
in those cases. There's laws in the Texas books where if you drill a bad natural gas well, you can write off 75% of that investment, even though it did
Yeah.
nothing. Like, but that's just a law. It's not termed a subsidy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not
Exactly.
saying it's a bad thing. It's just a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the wordsmithing and the word police drive me crazy on that stuff.
Yeah.
So, Kyle, as we're wrapping up, what's your advice for veterans coming in? We've already got 10% of the clean energy workforce, military veteran. You and I know this. We want to see that double. That's the mission of Project Vanguard, is to double the representation of veterans in clean energy. What's your advice for veterans that hear this and are thinking about getting into energy?
Don't be afraid to level down, right? Going from where I was in the Navy, I was supervisory qualified. I stood command duty officer, watch rotations, things like that. Going to be a high voltage tech was probably like 2 full steps down.
Yeah.
You got to do it to get your foot in the door, right? To a new industry, right? Because it's usually not one for one. I kind of understood that, right? So I took a couple steps down, I got my foot in the door, and 6 years later, I'm a regional manager, right? And I'm not special.
Yeah.
This is nothing that nobody from the military can't achieve themselves, because we have the skill set, we have the drive, we have the knowledge, we have the honesty and the integrity that make us so successful in the civilian world. So take that, brief it to your pride, go be a lead technician somewhere for a year or two. You'll be a site manager, and then now you're in management. Prove yourself to be a good manager, and now you get to move however you want, wherever you want, right?
No, that makes complete sense to me. Now, I mean, and talk a little bit about like your work with Project Vanguard, right? Now that you're the Houston chapter lead.
Yeah, I'm the Houston chapter leader, and really the goal is just to grow the community in Houston, right? Trying to bring people together. One of my things is because I kind of sit on the edge of civilization here in Sugar Land, and then I work even further out in Wharton County, is how can I start combing through Wharton County to find the veterans who are underemployed and who maybe want to do something else? How do we bring them into the fold? How do we show them the opportunity we've had?
Yeah.
And bring them up to our level to give them the lives we have, right?
Yeah. So for anybody listening, you just go to projectvanguard.com, you join, and you immediately get plugged into our Slack channel. And our Slack channel has hundreds of veterans on there that work in the industry and are ready to help you understand the industry, network, do peer mentoring. We have veteran recruiters that dip in and out. We have vets that are hiring, they'll post jobs. It's just a great place to get in there, connect. I think anyone who says they were on a sub suddenly gets thrown in with like a little bubblehead community. The Marines are over there munching on some crayons. There's some Army finance guy in the corner who's pretending that that's what he tells his kids to do. Go outside and play finance. No, you don't. You tell your kid to go outside and play infantry. There's only one job. There's one job in the Army.
Yeah, no. And I mean, just an example, the last virtual meetup we had, one of the guys, Felix, he's in school. He literally was told, hey, go be an intern with my company. Like, that's how it works, right? Just boom. Now he has an in.
Yeah. And I love how he's like a coder and working at Homeland Security and, wants to just get his foot in the door so he can move further into SCADA and cyber opportunities. When he's like, I'd like to get in, I'm like, what are you doing right now? He's like, well, I'm doing some work with Homeland Security, blah, blah. It's like, dude, all right, get after it.
Yeah.
Number one source of trained cyber talent in the country is Department of Defense.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, Kyle, this has been great, man. I appreciate you making the time. I know that this is going to be impactful for folks. I can't say enough about what you're doing, and you're leading by example.
No, thanks for having me on. This was a good chat. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Thanks for tuning into the Project Vanguard podcast. If this episode sparked something for you, share it with someone who's ready to think differently, whether it's about an all-the-above energy approach, how energy security is national security, or the veteran workforce in our industry. If you believe what we're building, a quick review goes a long way. You can do that wherever you get your podcasts. And until next time, keep up the fire.